Hey, what's going on, guys? Psych Guy's back in it for another video. Hey, first and foremost, thank you guys for subscribing to this channel. I believe in the product, I believe in the message. It means the world to me. What is Psych Guy all about? Psych Guy is all about high energy, high intensity, high passion for the field of medicine that I practice in. I'm a double board certified adult and child psychiatrist. This message is simple and clear to go ahead and spread as much knowledge to you good people out there, just based on all the experience, clinical experience that I've sort of gathered up through the years, and also read up on all articles and sort of research, and sort of my knowledge, reading books and whatnot, just amassed, just spread it to you, paying it forward. So yeah, this is what this channel's all about. So thank you again to all those who are sharing the love, passing the message on. You guys rock. Speaking of rocking, last week I sang a song at the beginning of my video. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but I had a little contest, I guess you want to call it that. I promised I was going to give a shout out to whoever gets the song title correctly. And username Mr. Wayne Jones. Wayne Jones, you rock, you got the song. The song I'm talking about is Newfound Glories, Hit or Miss. Newfound Glories, Hit or Miss. So yeah. That's the song, so congratulations. Sorry I don't have anything to give to you, but my knowledge, hey, that's all we want, right? My knowledge spread. Okay, let's get serious here because this is a topic that I wanted to talk about for many weeks now, many months. I've been having my eye on this topic, and I've been kind of dancing around the idea of doing a video. I never got around to doing it though. I just kind of distracted or sidetracked with this thing or that thing. Next thing you know, the weeks are passing by. But yeah, finally, I just put my foot down and said, I'm gonna go ahead and do a video on this. Okay, let's begin. A lot to talk about here. Now, originally, I was going to do a sort of continuation, further in-depth exploration of the same gentleman that I've been talking about now for the past 4 weeks or so, but I decided to change gears here for just this week. Don't worry, I'm going to go back to that individual within a week or two because we're not even done, and there are still some teaching points to learn on that topic. But for now, we're changing gears for this week. You know, truth be told, being a new YouTube content creator, I'm still relatively slow at creating videos, and when you work during the week and have very little free time on the weekends as it is, the most that I can crank out is one good quality video a week, more or less. So I gotta prioritize, and this video that I'm gonna do today definitely is much more important than pretty much almost all my other videos that are in Psych Guy's archived catalog, in my humble opinion. So I tend to pride myself as, let's see, what's the best way of putting it? Yeah, a social egalitarian, I guess is the easiest way of saying it. And every year there's always that 1 or 2 cases, usually about some form of social and or judicial injustice, that really grab my attention and pull me in. What happens is that I find out about a tragic case through the media will sensationalize it, and I'll get hooked on the ins and outs of the case, and then next thing you know, they stop talking about it as they abandon the reporting / updates and move on to the next story of the hour. I personally think that's unfair to the loved ones involved because if anything, that only represents an indirect form of tasteless and rather reckless abandonment after the victims and the families that were involved were basically chewed and spit out for ratings, in my humble opinion. It happens all the time. Last year, it was the murder of Washington Post consulting journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And this year, it's the unfortunate death of the UK teenager Mr. Harry Dunn, which I'll get into shortly here. But I want to stress that I think it's very important to continue to discuss these sorts of cases and never forget, so that these poor individuals are not forgotten, and rather there's a continued interest with the hopes of finally and ultimately attaining some form of justice for the victims' families. Actually, last week there were 2 events revolving this case that rekindled my interest for it. Number 1, a disturbing video clip that emerged, which I'll share with you later in this video. And more importantly, number 2, I was watching the news last week, and one morning I was getting ready to go for work, and I happened to catch a quick news segment. I believe it was CBS News, morning news, and they informed the viewers that the parents of Harry Dunn flew from England all the way to the States and hit the airport at 1 in the morning and immediately were greeted by CBS to do this interview with that news source, right? And yeah, throughout the entire horrific ordeal, these parents, my gosh, their tenacity and perseverance and drive to seek justice for their son is just truly awe-inspiring. I mean, one would think flying all that distance and hitting the airport at 1 in the morning and being all jet-lagged, they would immediately sleep, right? No way! This just shows me just the love and the affection and the unbridled passion that they have for Harry, and I'm 100% sure and know that he would more than likely be amazed and be proud of his parents, no doubt, if he were to here with us today. So yeah, anything that I can do to help out the case and add more insight, provide more insight, definitely I am there. One of the main purposes of this video also is to share my sort of theories and thoughts about the case from a psychiatric perspective and the potential damaging effects that can occur, more so to the individual responsible for Harry's death. Now, for those of you who don't know the case, here's a quick recap. On August 27th, 2019, the wife of a U.S. diplomat, Anne Sacoolas, pictured here, was driving on the wrong side of the road in England when she fatally hit a 19-year-old young man, Harry Dunn, who happened to be riding his motorcycle. The head-on collision left Mr. Harry Dunn with multiple injuries, and he later died in a hospital. Mrs. Sacoolas, the woman behind the hit and run, and her family claimed diplomatic immunity and only to flee the country just days after the crash, despite her originally promising to stay to be questioned at the time. Dunn's parents and the UK government have repeatedly appealed for her return to no avail. This has created tension between the UK and US relations, as both governmental sides do not see the case eye to eye, with the UK favoring waiving immunity and immediate extradition back to the UK to face prosecution, while the US feels otherwise. As much as Mr. Dunn's parents are trying to grieve and make sense of this tragedy, Mrs. Sacoolas, in my humble opinion, is probably internally suffering, despite it appearing on the surface to many that she's ducking and avoiding the subject altogether. I mean, how can she not? She was there and witnessed it all. From what I've read, it was a pretty violent and distressing scene. I believe I read an article where Harry's father, who rushed to his son's side, saw his son laying on the side of the road with bones sticking out. Those are the quotes that I saw in the article. I don't know how long Mrs. Sacoolas was there, or more importantly, if she was comforting poor Harry as he lay by the side of the road, but what I do know is that she was present. She, along with her two children in the car, witnessed the tragic event, and this more than likely puts her at a higher risk for developing PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Not saying that she has it, as I'm not her psychiatrist and have never examined or interviewed her, but just based on the facts that I'm reading, the kind of traumatic and unfortunate accident that occurred would have put anyone at risk for developing such a condition, especially with the severe, vivid imagery that was probably captured and witnessed on that sad August day by Mrs. Sacoolas. Now, a little bit about post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic symptoms can usually occur within 3 months of any traumatic event, such as an event as this accident. To be diagnosed with PTSD, an adult must have all the following for at least 1 month, including one re-experiencing symptom. This includes nightmares, flashbacks, frightening thoughts. One avoidance symptom. This includes staying away from places that remind one of the event, avoiding thoughts or feelings related to the event. At least 2 arousal reactivity symptoms. This includes being easily startled, feeling tense and or on the edge, or like having difficulty sleeping. And lastly, to finish up the PTSD symptomology symptoms, you have to have at least 2 cognition and mood symptoms. I believe this is something that was new, that was placed in the DSM-5 in comparison to the DSM-4. But yeah, at least 2 cognition and mood symptoms, which include trouble remembering key features of the traumatic event, negative thoughts about oneself or the world, distorted feelings like guilt or blame, loss of interest in enjoyable activities. These are all examples of cognition and mood symptoms. So yeah, that's PTSD. And I firmly believe Mrs. Sacoolas is at a heightened risk for developing such a condition. Women are more likely to develop PTSD than men. And the fact that she probably saw Mr. Dunn get hurt and is now dealing with extra stress after the event just amplifies this risk. Now, I want you to watch this video clip. This is from a British media source, ITV News, and it's actual footage that was taken just last week of Anne Sacoolas back at her home in Virginia, driving away after an ITV journalist approached her and had a few questions for her.
This is the first time that Anne Sacoolas has been filmed since she accidentally killed Harry Dunn and fled back to the US.
Hi, Mr. Sacoolas. It's British Television. Can I have a word with you, please? Will you go back to the UK, Mr. Sacoolas?
She has claimed diplomatic immunity and has refused to explain her conduct that day and her decision to flee the UK.
So yeah, clearly it seems as if Mrs. Sacoolas is visibly irritated in that video clip. Now, one can argue and say, hey, that could just be her, being a very private individual and rather annoyed that she was ambushed by media on her front lawn without her consent, right? As most anyone would rather be that way, right? However, she is not like most anyone. She's someone who accidentally took a young man's life and more or less fled the country, hiding behind a ridiculous legal loophole in the laws claiming diplomatic immunity, when she wasn't even the diplomat. She was the wife of a diplomat. Not only that, but throughout this entire ordeal, well, at least the first month or two after the accident, after she fled and sought refuge into the United States, she appeared to the media as being very sorry and remorseful. In fact, in October, even going to the White House and waiting in a room that was next door to that of Harry's parents and the President of the United States, with the hope of Harry's parents just washing their hands of everything and agreeing to meet with her face-to-face on the United States soil and kiss up and make up and play a bad game of kumbaya as if nothing happened so that everyone can move on. Oh, and by the way, they had no idea that you're waiting next door. How's that for an ambush, Mrs. Sacoolas? Don't you think you could have handled that British journalist encounter last week with a little more civility? Especially after you were the one who killed the poor child? Look, I get it, accidents do happen. However, the way that she handled this situation thus far up to this day, and especially even after seeing this video that surfaced last week, it's just flat out disgusting and doesn't represent anything American that I know of at all. Maybe you were in a rush. In that case, maybe you could have said something along the lines of, oh, I'm sorry, I have an appointment to attend to at the moment. However, I'll be happy to speak with you at a later time. Let's set up an appointment so that we all can talk. Something like that. You're saying no, and taking off is just only showing to the general public how much of a lack of emotional disconnection that you have with this case at the present time. The only psychological explanation that I can theorize and see, aside from obvious egocentric deflection and conscious disconnection, that I can see her possibly starting to maybe have this PTSD component that I alluded to earlier. Could this abrupt no, and taken off quickly that we see in this video, could this be one of the two hyper-arousal and or mood symptoms that is captured with someone having PTSD? You gotta understand something. The human psyche is the totality of the human mind, conscious and unconscious. It is vulnerable to what is known in the psychoanalytical world to what's called psychic insults. Psychic insults are traumatic events that can be damaging and disruptive to the overall makeup of one's psyche. In my professional career as a psychiatrist, I cannot tell you how many times I've spoken to patients who have witnessed a caustic event, such as the accident as described above, and the deadly consequences that can occur later at any point in time. What happens is that a tragedy occurs, and internalization of the tragic events becomes ingrained into one's unconscious, which later is converted to feelings of shame, guilt, and a whole variety of other such uncomfortable emotions, such as irritability, like we saw in that video, displayed in one's conscience. In other words, the unconscious internalization process and likewise conscious manifestation of distressing emotions can be felt for years and years to come if not properly treated. Acknowledgement and acceptance is usually the beginning, not ambiguity and avoidance. Oh, that's the other thing. I've seen it time and time again where folks will try to handle or solve a problem by enlisting and seeking out therapy or psychiatric care immediately without taking the necessary first and proper steps such as conscious and unconscious acknowledgement and acceptance. Guess what? If you don't have that key first initial crucial step on your belt, you can blast anyone with all the therapy that you want, and it's not going to be effective in the end. It's just going to be a total waste of time. And who knows, maybe Mrs. Sacoolas has sought out therapy and psychiatric care to help her deal with the situation that she's currently facing, and and with a probable maybe PTSD component that she may have. I don't know, who knows? Or maybe she's using it, as a prophylactic measure because there is something called delayed onset PTSD, which is a type of PTSD where symptoms are not exhibited until 6 months after a traumatic event. So yeah, maybe she has already sought help and is getting the necessary treatment. Who knows? But again, a special kind of therapy designed for PTSD, such as, I don't know, cognitive processing therapy, for example, or whatever heck the therapy that she engaged, if she were to engage in therapy. Anyways, any kind of therapy that she were to initiate, they're all going to be a waste of time, okay? Unless if that first step is taken. The true step of conscious and unconscious acknowledgement and acceptance. Now, I want you to watch this video clip again, and I want you to look around at everything that's captured in this 10-second video clip, okay? And see if there's anything else that jumps at you, aside from Mrs. Sacoolas abruptly saying no, no, and driving away.
This is the first time that Sacoolas has been filmed since she accidentally killed Harry Dunn and fled back to the US.
Hi, Mr. Sacoolas. It's British Solid. Can I have a word with you, please?
Did you catch it? Did you see all the candy cane decorations in the front lawn? This to me as a psychiatrist says that this individual's returning back to her normal life. The term is called normalization, which is basically a process that makes something more normal, regular, or usual. And make no mistake, it appears that Mrs. Sacoolas is doing just that, or trying to do that. You know, just gathering that information from, you know, this 10-second video clip, just trying to normalize, you know, her life, the life that she once knew back in the day before this accident. Whether that was her idea or someone else's, such as a friend, or maybe a professional such as a therapist, i.e., if she's even going to one, who knows again, right? But yeah, make no mistake that you can tell she's just doing her best to normalize her environment, consciously free from all that has happened less than 4 months ago. Or maybe from a Freudian psychoanalytical standpoint, could this all just be explained by a simple defense mechanism? In particular, the defense mechanism of undoing, which is basically a neurotic defense mechanism where an individual tries to undo an unhealthy thought, or in Mrs. Sacoolas' case, the unhealthy thought being that of immense guilt of Harry's death, by acting out the reverse of the unacceptable, or in Mrs. Sacoolas' case, putting out candy canes and taking her kids to soccer practice, for example. Who knows, right? What is known, though, is that there truly needs to be a closer look at archaic laws of diplomatic immunity, and should it cover even deaths such as this one. If anything, I am highly troubled because the way the law is written, if you're a diplomat and you commit a crime in a country, okay, you can claim diplomatic immunity and flee back to your country of origin. If anything, if not changed, this law would only serve to foster, potentially, more crimes abroad committed by diplomats, right? Because of the get-out-of-jail-free card that's provided to them from the get-go, not to mention the select favoritism of certain individuals over others. The first step to healing needs to be for her to face the music and go back to England and resume her cooperating with discussions and investigations. This will serve as a template to allow her brain to process and reduce the risk of, and prevent, any further lifelong psychological damage that may or may not have been already done. One can already see signs of an improper and artificial resolution with her hiding behind lawyers, or just recently in October with President Trump when she tried to meet with Mr. Dunn's parents. This is not optimal for her psyche, and the psychological risks of her not going back to the UK outweigh the benefits of her staying in the United States. Unresolved PTSD, if she has that, is only setting her up for the potential for more comorbid pathology down the road if untreated, including depression, substance abuse, and dementia, to name a few conditions. Just to expand on that last point about increased risk of dementia, research presented at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference in 2016 stated that patients with PTSD have a 56% increased risk of developing dementia compared with controls without PTSD, and that men with PTSD had a 90% increase in dementia risk versus women with PTSD having a 41% increase in dementia risk compared to that of controls. So yeah, this is really a big deal that should be taken seriously, and not wishing any sort of ill will towards anyone, as I always state in all my videos, but I truly hope that Mrs. Sacoolas is looking at all these points that I have laid out in this video. And by the way, I haven't even brought up her children at all. They also too were in the car that day of the accident. I hope that they're doing well. Not sure if, they themselves, witnessed the distressing trauma that happened that day. Hopefully not. But if they did, are they receiving help? And what does that show to them with their mother, who is a love object designed to look after and protect them, basically, getting up and fleeing the country without facing any of the music? What sort of message is that showing to them? Mommy did the worst thing in the world and took an innocent man's life without facing any consequences. So now I can do whatever I want. A lot of times I see children in that scenario where their parent has gotten away the way Anne has. These children end up leading to have unnecessary, harder struggles in life down the road with increased rates of depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and being victims of being bullied because others don't like the overall unfairness and privilege given to their parent. Again, hoping that none of this happens to them or to anyone, but that's what I see a lot of times in my clinical practice, unfortunately. So to recap, again, really it's a no-brainer for Anne, Mrs. Sacoolas, to just return back to England, not only for Harry's parents, but also for herself and her family, especially when there have been interviews where Harry's parents were not looking for any jail time for Mrs. Sacoolas, more so just answers. Or at least that was the case in the beginning. Not sure how they feel now, if that's changed or not. But yeah, a more natural and healthy approach would be for Mrs. Sacoolas to be psychologically mature and be a good role model to her children in this situation, and to return back to England and to allow the process to unfold accordingly without any artificial governmental and or legal boundaries or barriers in the way. Otherwise, she is running the risk of permanent psychological scarring of her brain for life from this unresolved conflict. The loss of a young man's life is already sad as it is. Let's not make it another one. Okay, well, thanks for watching this video. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, or subscribe, or all the above, whatever you want to do. Probably next week or the week after, definitely before the end of this year, we're going to return back to our main topic that we talked about for the past couple of weeks, because there's still some more that needs to be said about that certain individual. I hope you guys understand the purpose of why I did this video, the timing and whatnot, as explained in my video. I think it was very, very important. It was a long time coming. And who knows, maybe Anne Sacoolas, if you ever got a hold of this video, if you ever watched this, please listen to what I've discussed and said. Realize that I have no financial benefit or gain from this video. No one has hired me. I've got no sort of conflict of interest or nothing like that. I have no skin in the game. Yeah, this is just my thoughts and theories and hypotheses, just based on experience, real life cases who are in your current situation that you're facing right now. I think it will be in your best interest to sort of heed what I sort of discussed. Not only for yourself, but your children. Yeah, your children and your psyche. Because otherwise it can be really, really disastrous. Just a little tidbit there. Just keep that back in your mind and sort of process that. And to the family of Harry Dunn, wow, what can I say? Keep on fighting. You're an inspiration to all of us. I'm here in America, and I definitely support you 100%, no doubt. All my colleagues support you. In fact, thumbs up if you support the Harry's parents. My gosh, you guys are just fighting the fight, the good fight. Keep doing it. Never give up. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to the critics. Don't listen to the people who say nothing's going to happen or whatever. Just keep going at it. Keep driving that fight. Until next time, guys, I will see you in the next video. This has been Psych Guy, and you guys take care. Bye. Peace.